don't think for a moment that what is said on Mel in the Middle is just dropped after it's done. You can go for a week and be convicted over what's been discussed. And I'm sure it's going to last longer than a week, because last week when we talked about Christian cheating, that's been on my mind a lot, and my actions with respect to timeliness, promptitude, and cheating others, even if it's just a couple of minutes. So I don't know if we're going to track the same way this week, but I'm sure I'm going to be stuck again in the middle, wrestling with something more than just a 20-minute discussion. So here we go. Summer's with us today at another site location, and you see Andy here to my right, and one of them has got something to say that I'm sure will put me in the middle. Is it Summer?
That's a lot of silence right there.
She's signaling to her dog.
Yeah, the dog. The dog has the top.
My dog had a question.
All right, Mel. Let me tell you a story.
I'm sorry.
Do you want a story, Mel?
Okay.
Here we go.
This might ease into it.
This is definitely will ease into it. Mel, let's say you were a youth pastor. Yep, see the scrunchy face already. Let's say that you were at a youth night as a youth pastor with some youth. Somebody in your church brought a whole plate of cookies and snacks, right? For the event that they were having the next day, not for youth. Right?
Okay.
They come in the next day for that event to find that most of the cookies are gone. Right? You diligently track down the culprit and you judge him or her accordingly. Right? You take care of the whole thing. The next week, you're at youth again. Plate of cookies for the event for the next day is there again. And once again, cookies are missing. Got that? Do you diligently do your homework to find who the culprit might be, or do you just assume that you already know who the culprit is?
You couldn't help but be inclined to think it was the one who took it the week before. Especially, what do you call it, the list of suspects? But I would leave room to have reasonable doubt because I really don't know.
So would you do your homework and try to find the culprit, or would you start with last week's culprit and accuse them in a Christian way first?
So we go from Christian cheating to Christian accusation?
Mm-hmm.
You know, the idealistic side of me would say, let's start from ground zero and trace it to see where it ends up. But I'd have a bias in me that would incline towards the one who's already done it.
So let's say that the little old lady who made the cookies is in your face, right? Demanding that you do something and has already predetermined that it was the kid who took him last week. How much due diligence are you really going to do in the face of that wonderful little old lady?
I think, wouldn't I say something to the effect that, do you have a lead? Do you know who is the culprit? Or what's the reason behind these cookies being consumed?
So, of course she does, because she experienced this last week. So she already knows who's guilty, Mel. You just gotta pass judgment on the guilty youth.
Isn't that a priori knowledge? Meaning, she's going off a hunch, her experience, and how does she know that her experience last week is correct this week?
Well, why does she need to know any of that, Mel? She experienced it last week. It's the same experience this week. What? You don't really have to do a lot of math there, Mel. You just go with the obvious.
I would want to go where the evidence leads and not the experience.
So, Summer, based on our previous Mel in the middles, do you have any faith that Mel would actually do his due diligence?
I don't know, Mel.
Oh,
I don't know. But you know what? I was thinking, like, if I was, like, a bad kid in that group, I would, like, see the second week as a chance to steal the cookies to get the first kid in trouble.
See, that's how she thinks, Mel.
oh, wow.
Because, I mean, obviously, everyone would think it was him. So if I really wanted to just be bad or get some cookies, it'd be a great week to do it.
I guess there are those who would think
There's
like
lots
that.
of those.
So here's my question, really, to the two of you. Paul warns Timothy about this, right? Paul says in Timothy, 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 21, he says, "In the presence of God and of Jesus and of the elect angels, I charge you to keep these rules without prejudging, doing nothing from partiality," right? So, Christian partiality now ranks right up there with lying and cheating to me. We look at things and we predetermine all kinds of things, do we not, in our Christian world?
I think so.
So let me ask Summer first, because she's up there on the screen.
I like
right?
that.
So, Summer, have you ever been guilty of Christian partiality?
I'm sure. I can't think
to
of
add to
examples
that.
off the top of my I would need to be able to think of examples, but I'm not going to say no because I'm sure I have.
Okay, so let me give you a what if, and you can go from there. Right?
I guess because we assume all the time, like we just assume things about people, like you said with the cookie thing, like we just do. We assume we know people. We assume we know what they're going to do or not do, and we don't even give them a chance sometimes. So yeah.
We assume that we know them when we may not know them, right? Or we assume that they're going to think like us or act like us, or we predetermine what they might need, right? We don't ask them what they need. We just determine that based on the look on your face, based on your actions, based on your words, this is what you might need. So,
Yeah.
Mel, same question for Mel in the middle. Mel, have you ever prejudged something at church?
Yeah.
I think for me, I do it most, now that I'm thinking about it, uh, I do it most when I decide people care or don't care about me. Right? So, like, if I think someone doesn't care about me, then I often don't give them uh, chances to care about me.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, I won't treat them different than other people. I'm still going to love them and things, but I'm not going to give them, like, opportunities to care about me.
That's a little abstract to me.
Um, I might not tell them as much, or be as open with them, or, call them if I need something because I've decided that they don't care about me.
So, like, this is Easter Sunday coming up, right? Lots of us have breakfasts, right? If you are a person overseeing a breakfast and the year before you asked somebody to do something, bring something, clean up, and they didn't do it, right? A year later, they came up to you and they say, "Hey, we want to help with breakfast." Do you think the average person prejudges that moment? Predetermines, I'm not going to let that person help, or they're not going to do it, so I'm going to give them something minimal or something I've already determined that they're going to let me down.
I think that enters into it, but the track record definitely, I think, would have an impact. And make a person say, I want a person who I can depend on to follow through.
So do you think it should have an impact on the decision right now? A year later, should it matter? Even from at home, Summer can give you a look.
Summer is shaking her head, yes. No.
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 No. Yeah, you know.
I got like the reasons are piling up in my head in the Bible. Number 1, love does not keep a record of wrongs. Number 2, love always trusts. Number 3, 70 times 7, you must forgive your brother. So how does that work? If a year later you tell him no, you didn't do it last year.
I sit.
You sit.
I said I was going to stand, but I'm
Correct.
sitting. And I would say I sit convicted and corrected.
You didn't even let me pull anything. I didn't even get to keep going now. I'll figure it out, Mel, in the middle. If he just gets convicted at the beginning, we don't have to keep going.
But I thought that was fantastic from Summer
She's
to already pull out from Scripture things that speak right into the situation.
I was thinking about the story of Peter, right? And if Jesus was me, do you think that Jesus would have used Peter on Pentecost? Nope. How many times did Peter let Jesus down?
Oh, and
Yeah.
right.
So sometimes it ranks up there with Paul, to me, right? Paul doesn't have a use for John Mark, but then later on has to admit, send John Mark to me. He's valuable to me. Like, do you think maybe Paul prejudged John Mark, even though we don't like to think that Paul could do anything? It's amazing to me. We have no problem believing that Peter is a mess up, right?
Right.
He chose to eat with the wrong people and then move and all these things. But when it comes to Paul, people have a real hard time saying that he could have done anything wrong in the scriptures, with that whole John Mark thing. Like, we want to make an excuse or a reason or that kind of a thing.
I think that's a great point, because people oftentimes feel like they can really relate to Peter.
Yeah.
And Paul is put up on a higher pedestal.
Yep.
Yeah, forget the killing Jews part in the beginning.
Yeah.
Like what?
It's this prejudging thing, this predetermined thing. It runs rampant in our churches, right? I love Summer's list. We need to go by that list. But how many people in your church, and starting with me and you, like, how many people follow that list?
Christian partiality. And you know what you did today, Andy? You made it bigger than James. Meaning, James warns us about favoring one over another. But you brought the passage out of Timothy.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't really given that a sufficient amount of thought and reflection. But
well, we talked about it earlier today too, in another aspect of like just how like we react to crisis or sickness or something in our church, right? Like, there's tons of people in your church who get sick and go to the hospital and die, and all these things happen, and it's like, okay, we might pray, like, if we're good, right? We might pray and do those things, but most of the time it's just like kind of goes unnoticed, or maybe there's a little bit of chat around the church about it or whatever. And their close friends are the ones who take care of them and stuff. But then if if the worship leader or the pastor or the whoever gets like really sick or something, and then we call a solemn assembly and we bring everybody in and we all have a prayer night, and it's like, well, let's pray for this person because it's the worship leader or the pastor, but who cares about Joe Blow who sits in the back pew every Sunday, right? And we don't do the same stuff for people in the church, like, no matter who they are, right? We don't. It's just true. We don't. Yeah.
Uh-oh.
that almost puts what do they call it? A scrunchy
face?
Scrunchy face. It does.
Yep.
Could we be saying that we have as much an issue with Christian partiality as we do with Christian cheating?
I think that we
Probably
probably have more of a problem with Christian partiality. We just treat people differently, Mel, and we predetermine who a person is based on something we've heard about them or we've experienced. And then we look at the situation and we take what we predetermined and we make a decision. Hey, the truth is 99% of people are never going to go look for who the new culprit in the cookies might be. They're just going right to that kid who stole them last week and go, "Did you take the cookies again?" That's just what they're going to do. And Summer's right. what a great opportunity for other people to take advantage of that. Right? So we can push people into places of taking the fall, right, for us, right, or for other people, and the damage that does, right, when because you and I both know there are people this Easter who have been disinvited to helping make something for Easter because they screwed up last. But there's
Yep.
also people who aren't serving in positions at church, people who aren't able to do things because 10 years ago they made a mistake or deliberately did something, but 10 years later you'll hear it like, hey, don't let Andy paint. Look at what he did the last time he painted. Which might happen at the center, and I might have a problem with that.
Oh, partiality is an issue in the church.
And Paul says, don't do it. James says it's going to be a problem. Jesus actually refers to it in verse, don't do it. It's easy to love some people. I tell you, love your enemy. Pray for your enemy.
Well, this will be another week's worth and more in thinking about how this personally relates.
Well, you know, Mel, it's super important at Easter because this is going to go out Saturday right before Easter. This is a super important topic because did Jesus show partiality while dying for us? Did he only die for some people? Or the good people? The church people?
He died for the elect.
Now you're going to get Summer going.
He
For who?
sufficiently died for all. Efficiently died for the elect. But this is another topic for another time.
You are so smart.
All right.
When Summer's in person.
This gonna go on for another 20 minutes, but we'll leave it there today regarding Christian partiality, not to mention Christian lying and Christian cheating.
I wonder what's next week.
What is next week? I say a book being written. All right. See you next time.
Bye.